likely source in James Maddison, you have to say, but you know, it's another mistake. Leicester in that first half, you know, they struggled. You know, as you say, it was a decent start, but then after that they just looked nervy. They struggled to get into the game. Obviously, half-time comes, a couple of changes come, you know, and they look better in the second half, but they just lack the quality, that cutting edge in the final third of the pitch. And you know, yet again they've been undone by their own doing, basically, i.e. making a mistake that led to the goal.
One or two of the players going around and applauding the fans who have stayed and seen them to the last seconds here. But ultimately Leicester have been beaten. A single goal from Philip Billing 5 minutes before half-time has been enough for them. They enjoy their day in the sunshine. Leicester City go to Manchester City next week looking for more points to add to their tally. They remain second bottom in the table with Southampton yet to play this weekend. Another day to forget here at King Power Stadium. Full time in the Premier League, it has finished Leicester City 0, Bournemouth 1.
Thank you very much, James. Bitterly disappointing afternoon here at King Power Stadium. Matty Fryatt and Matt Elliott with me, Dan Bates. Jerry Taggart will stay with us as we try and assess what we've just witnessed. It's a chastening day, Matt.
Yeah, it was exactly that, wasn't it? Exactly that. That's a good word to describe it. I think bright enough beforehand. In fact, very bright. The atmosphere was alive, wasn't it? And expectant as well. And it was a considered, you know, a real big day, wasn't it? And I think everyone knew the importance of it. And the players came out, you know, with that sort of energy to try and attack the day. But it just came undone and unravelled, didn't it? And I mean, the scoreline was only the 1 goal deficit, but it felt like it was much easier than that, really, for Bournemouth. For me, a lack of chances created from Leicester, you know, considering the importance of the day, you know, how much they needed to go and put some pressure on and make the goalkeeper work and, you know, at least threaten, but they didn't really do that, did they, in truth? And it was far too comfortable for Bournemouth overall. They'll be almost pinching themselves a little bit, thinking, one, they got the away result, 3 points, which doesn't happen from too often, but the ease with which they did it, all things considered, was was quite astounding, really.
On that note, a clean sheet as well. They've come away from home, and until the second half, changes need to be made in terms of got Daka, got Iheanacho on. It looked a bit more lively, a bit more intensity to the play, more tempo to it, but at times it was a little bit desperate, but at least got bodies around the box. But first half was worst case scenario. It was really flat. After the opening 5 minutes, it was flat, a mistake for the goal, and just looked nervy and cagey, never really got out, and it was difficult, especially in the second half. But you saw an increase in it, but it was desperate, just trying to make something happen. And it's at this time in the season where you need results, and unfortunately it's 3 defeats out the last 3, and it's not ideal. Of course it isn't, against obviously a relegation rival, and for 60 minutes Bournemouth were pretty much comfortable. Really disappointing day, really disappointing.
Jerry, obviously you were on commentary. You had to talk about it for 90 minutes. You've got to do so again now. How do you sum it up?
Oh, it's hard, isn't it? You know, everybody will be deflated. There's no doubt about that. I think the first half performance, you know, obviously lacked confidence, lacked belief for me. Second half, you know, the lads have already touched on it, slightly different. Will the changes being made? You know, it just sort of changed, you know, the atmosphere inside the ground. That they put Bournemouth on the back foot, but the reality it is, Dan, that they lacked that quality in the final third. That, you know, it was half chances, pot shots. Bournemouth were getting everybody behind the ball when the ball was in wide areas. And again, you know, with the underlying thing that comes out for me is that the players are, you know, do look as if they are lacking confidence and belief in the, you know, in themselves and each other.
How do you get that back?
At this stage of the season, and with the scenario that it is, not easy at all. I think it's right there. I mean, Bournemouth looked the more composed, didn't they, and the more organised, you have to say, really, you know, more comfortable with how they played and the people around them. You're looking at that result now. I think it's sort of definitely, you know, some people will say it's too late anyway, but I don't believe it is. But I think it forces your arm a little bit to get someone in. That's not a criticism of Sadler or Stow. You know, in that situation, I said it before the game, it's difficult to do much more than lift the players, encourage them and everything. You can't all of a sudden sort of implement too much tactically, especially when they've been a little bit of a part of how things have gone this season anyway, in terms of how Leicester play their games. But I suppose, you know, I'm sort of contradicting myself there. Someone else comes in, not going to make wholesale changes, but just a few tweaks, put their own personality there, try and make that little bit of influence, just to, I don't know, 1, 2, 3%, which might be all it takes. But Leicester, you know, up until today, haven't been a million miles off. It's been small margin. Today was only a mistake, ultimately, that conceded the game, although Bournemouth, you know, it was far too easy for them. But I think now, not speaking for anyone above and the board and that, but I think you're going to get someone in who's going to try and steady the ship, shall we say, and hopefully steer the ship as well for the remaining 8 games.
I think it's a different voice as well. Obviously, Adam Sadler's come in, Mike Stow, they've been with the coaching staff a long time. Although they're in caretaker charge and it's a different position, someone from the outside coming in, whether it's someone who knows the club or someone else, but I think it does, as Matt said, probably forces the hand on the back of these 2 damning results at home against Villa. Sort of had nothing to play for, and even though they've kicked on, but today was a must win, and unfortunately Leicester being the wrong side of the result, and now it's a case of, I think it just needs someone to even lift it, just someone coming in with just a different feel, and then maybe other players who aren't in the team at the minute, they get a lift. The ones in the team, they get boosted because they've got to up their performance, and just that feel of someone new into the building to try and generate something, because it needs it now. It really does. Like I say, it was must win, so really difficult. But I think it could be the point of a different voice, someone from the outside, whether they've got connections with Leicester or someone further afield. But I think it's that case now where you need something to just reinvigor the players and get some boost in whatever way it looks. But I think that's the scenario.
I think, you know, interim management, you know, it's, you can't really win, can you? I think, you know, it has worked in the past for certain clubs. I think, you know, Villa not so long ago.
Bournemouth, Gary O'Neill.
Yeah, Gary O'Neill ends up getting the job, so it can work, or, you know, it can work. But I think, as regards to Mike and Adam, you know, they were probably too far down this road. You know, that 4 years, you know, listening to Brendan, and this season obviously hasn't gone the way anybody would have expected. And the players now, and probably some of the staff are in, you know, this predicament of, you know, I'm not saying the writing's already on the wall, so it definitely needs someone from the outside coming in and trying to put, you know, a different voice, different tactics for me as well. Maybe a different formation. We'll have to wait and see, but it definitely needs someone new.
Well, it goes without saying, something has to change in terms of the way that it went today. That has to change if Leicester want to stay in this league.
It has to. Home performance, a home game against a team that are in a similar position, and first half it just, again, lacking confidence, belief. It was like I said, worst case scenario, and when you're up against it, you do make mistakes, and sometimes, as Jerry said in commentary, Leicester have been their own worst enemy in terms of giving it away in areas that they shouldn't really be risking the ball. And now, if it is a different voice, you might just say turn it, get behind, squeeze up the play, just play territory, as opposed to neat, tidy football, which has been Brendan's philosophy. So it's hard to get away from that, but at the same time, sometimes it's fight, graft, determination, a bit of resilience, turn it and just play literally in their half and press them all in. It might be something like that, but first half was desperate, it really was, and you want something to be lifted, and I did feel for the fans today, especially in the first half. And then the way Leicester conceded the goal, it was always going to be difficult second half, and yes, it was more like it in terms of the second half, but I think the damage had been done, and it was difficult to go from that point on.
I think, you know, when you analyse the goals conceded that Leicester have conceded in the last month or so, the majority of them, I would say, are down to mistakes that Leicester have brought on themselves. And again, the game today, the goal today, even though it's James Maddison's back pass, it's a bit short. In the build-up to the ball going into James Maddison, Leicester had at least 2 chances to play the ball forward earlier and turned them both down, and then decided to play a ball into James Maddison where he's under pressure, so he has to think quickly, and that's not really a position where James should be on the pitch invariably. You know, he shouldn't be that deep. That's not where he's on the pitch to do, but he finds himself in that position, and subsequently the pass is on the play, but it comes from their own doing, the build up to it, and we've seen it time and time again where goals are conceded. The winning goal for Villa the other night, exactly the same, trying to play out under pressure, down to 10 men. And various other goals we could name as well. So for me, that's probably the biggest change for any manager when they come in, is this, to try and stop this obsession of playing out from the back when you're under pressure. I'm not saying that, you know, they don't want to get on the ball and play. Of course they do. That's the modern game.
Yeah, 'cause I think that sort of stubbornness, if you like, or that bordering, so obsession is probably too strong a word, but to keep doing that, it's been coached into them. Most of them as individuals, you know, from relatively young age, whatever, but like as a group, that's been part of the style. But there's a time and a place for it. I mean, I don't know, you know, it's all about the right decisions, you know, and the right options, taking them. But certainly without, it's almost, I don't know if it's like them making poor decisions, which is obviously part of the problem, or whether they've been told to try and risk it in those situations. Me, as a coach, you would imagine that's what makes, you know, a good player for you, is when to play and when to be safe, put it long, whatever. And Leicester, it sort of spreads, because if they try and overplay, even if it's just 2 or 3 times, with the predicament that they're in, you give it away once or twice, and then all of a sudden there's a little bit of nervousness. Then you're actually umming and ahhing, saying, "Oh, shall I play it? Shall I go long?" And if you've got to think about it, so it's got to be automatic, really, instinctive. You know, you sort of learn what to do at the right times because you repeat it that often. But you start thinking about it, and it's a problem. Like, people get closed down, etc., and people start doing things they wouldn't do ordinarily. Like Maddison coming in there, he's playing number 10. He's desperate to help out the team as much as he can. He thinks, well, I'm one of the main men, I'll get on the ball, I'll try and make things happen, and he's forcing it, and he's made the error. But like Jerry says, he shouldn't really be in that position on the ball. If things were going better, he'd be further up the field, and he'd have the patience to sit there and wait to make his move to get the ball. But then that leads on to another problem. Matty mentioned it before the game about, you know, the 2 holding midfielders. Who's going to get the ball to Maddison in that 10 position? Fullbacks struggling a little bit. They're not bombing forward like they. Christensen had an off day today. Castagne's had an off season, really, for him. Who's going to feed Maddison in the vital areas? And then it's like a knock-on effect, isn't it, really?
Do you also think there's a thing of a stigma with the Premiership? where you've got to play out, it's got to be pretty, or is that a style?
I think for the majority, I think I don't know if it's stigma, but there's a
Or an arrogance
there's an
to the
emphasis
play.
on it, isn't there? A lot of teams, yeah. But
Like keep it, even though you're going nowhere. And sometimes it's turn it into the space,
yeah,
get behind the ball, squeeze up, even though it's a percentage pass. I think sometimes it's playing for playing's sake to look a player, as opposed to play in the right areas, and then you're higher up, then you can do your play, quick combinations around the box. But sometimes there's a reluctance to play that sort of nothing ball, but it gets you up the pitch. And I just sometimes. You saw Bournemouth today, sometimes they turned it for Billy and he just ran in behind it. Weren't a great ball, but they got forward and then Leicester on the back foot. And I think
it's a time and place for a bit of everything. And it's decision making. I mean, I think if you just play one way all the time, you're asking for trouble, because the opposition will work you out a bit. So you have to have that variety to your play, and you implement that. Then it's up to individuals to apply it. But that's where the change of voice, change of style or whatever that you want, bringing someone else in, perhaps, even if it's relatively short term, just to the end of the season.
And when you look at it, Jerry, it isn't too late. Of course it's not too late. There's 8 games still to play in the Premier League. That's 24 points to play for.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think the problem you have, Dan, is once the negativity seeps in, it's very, very difficult to get it out of the dressing room, and that is a major issue. Talking from experience, believe you me, once you're down there, and I tell you, the biggest issue is seeing, goals being conceded to mistakes that you've made, from mistakes that you've made.
Which has happened for the last 2 goals.
Which has happened for the last 2 goals, and then so that negativity seeps in to the dressing room, to the player's mind, and that's why it's probably even more important that they get somebody in ASAP, because a new voice will literally scrap all that and say, right, this is an 8-game season. This is how we're going to do things from now on in. And obviously the players have to buy into that, even if they do still have those negative thoughts or those negative connotations in the back of their mind. But that is the biggest problem that the players, the staff, and any new manager that potentially comes in will have is trying to get rid of the negativity that will undoubtedly be in that dressing room.
8-game season, that's a good way of putting it, really.
it is. And no harder place to go than next week. But that's the task that Leicester face themselves at, an 8-game season, and you can look at the games and take away everything before it, maybe with a different voice and a different message, and just someone saying it as basic as that is an 8-game season, and then look at what points, where can we pick it up. We need to at least get to 36 points. Where are we going to achieve those points from? Next week's a really difficult game. You don't expect to get anything from that, so you could base it down to, if you get anything, it's a bonus. So it could be down to a 7-game season.
I think it's more about the performance and how to stand up and and be counted next week. I think you've got to go into that game thinking that's the minimum that I want next week. Is I don't want to see that first half performance again for the rest of the season. So that is your benchmark for next week, and then, as Matty says, if you get something out of it, it's a bonus, and then you move on from there. But you've got to draw lines in the sand that you do not cross, or you do not go below from now on in.
Yeah, just looking at saying that 8-game season, and I've been advocating that when it was 10 games. I'm like, there's over a quarter of the season to go, but they go by pretty quick, and you have to operate in the here and now. And when you look at it, and even at the start of the season, a lot of people, myself included, were saying, "Oh, that makes a nice change. Leicester have got a relatively comfortable end to the season in comparison to years gone by." It's not looking the case now, is it? Any game is extremely difficult, as we've seen today. Games. I fancied Leicester today. Of all days, I fancied them before the game today. against a team like Bournemouth better than I thought they would be, but I shouldn't have been that surprised because they picked up some good results, haven't they? But I don't think Leicester underestimated them. At all. They just struggled to put things together, didn't they? They got rattled and it all just fell apart, particularly that first half. But then the remainder of the season, 8 games, yeah, sounds all right on the face of it. But then Man City, and it was Newcastle away, isn't it? Liverpool.
Yeah, I'll read out the fixtures now.
All of a sudden, it don't look so bright and rosy. It's going to be testing times.
Yeah, Man City away next week. Then it's Wolves at home, Leeds away, Everton at home, as you can see on the screen there.
That's the run, isn't it?
Fulham away, Liverpool at home, Newcastle away, West Ham at home on the final day. So 8 massive games now for Leicester City. We're pretty much coming towards the end of Matchday Live here this afternoon. There's plenty more to come from us though on LCSC TV. You can obviously tune in for Extra Time on Monday evening, on Easter Monday. That will be a 6 o'clock start, so do join us for that. We'll be back in a week's time. It's an evening kickoff up at the Etihad. We'll be live from 4:30, so do join us for that. And as ever, you can listen to Leicester's The Place, a brand new podcast with Jerry Taggart and Matt Elliott in conversation with David Nugent. You can either watch that on YouTube or listen wherever you get your podcasts. Thank you very much to Matt Elliott, to Matty Fryatt, to Jerry Taggart for their company today on another bitterly disappointing day for Leicester. Enjoy the rest of your Easter weekend.